Welcome, elite entrepreneurs and empire builders. I'm Jared, founder and CEO of FranOps, and you are with FranOps Live. I am so excited for today. You know, we do these live streams every single week. Is my goal is to bring you the best and the winning franchise opportunities that are out there. I mean, there is over 4,000 different franchise opportunities worldwide, and my goal, my heartbeat in this group is to present the ones that are winning. The best opportunities for you. So that's our goal. That's what we want to do here. There's a lot of scammers out there. There's a lot of franchisors, a lot of systems that aren't really systems. They're just trying to make a buck and they'll sell you something. And so we at FranOps, we go above and beyond to make sure we're presenting the highest quality brands, those that have true and proven support systems, those that are some of the best and the highest chance of being successful and achieving those dreams of business and personal goals that you have set forth for your future of being able to lead a team, of being able to build something that matters, of financial independence, of controlling your own calendar and schedule, of being your own boss, of maybe for you, it's even building that dream home or a dream car, going on vacations or spending more time with family, being home in the evenings around the dinner table, whatever it might be. I really do think franchising is the route to go. So that's what we do at FranOps. Today, though, is going to be fun. We're not specifically talking about an individual brand or a franchise, so to speak, but we're talking about the entire franchise process to getting into ownership, to becoming a business owner via franchising. We're going to unpack for you today the entire discovery process. It's gonna be a good one, as I mean, you can promise they always are, right? So it's gonna be a good one. Drop your questions in the chat as we go. We will unpack those. We won't necessarily save those till the end this time like we normally do. We'll answer those in real time, because today I am bringing on a good friend of mine named Heath Turner. He's a part of BAI, Business Alliance Incorporated, and I'll let him unpack a little bit about who that is, what that is. But man, I just wanted to say this up front. I am like literally, not to steal language from the Toy Story toys, but eternally grateful, if you understand that reference, eternally grateful to BAI. They are the reason I have this as a business, as a career. They've gone to bat for me a number of times when I needed them. They have provided support way more than any other broker network normally would. I am not just a consultant or a broker inside of their network. I'm not just an affiliate with them, just one of several hundred others, but no, they truly value me as an individual, and I'm so thankful for them. I've learned so much from them. I value so much about who they are. A lot of what FranOps is and does is because of them. And so I'm just so pumped to have on my man Heath Turner today. So yeah, that's it. Elite entrepreneurs, let's dive in together. Let's bring in Heath and talk about the franchise discovery process. Heath, my man, you are on with FranOps Live. How are you?
I'm excited to be here. I feel like this is a little bit of a spotlight of fame with how this group has grown. So I'm excited to talk with you today. Yeah, and I appreciate the introduction. That was an amazing introduction.
Well, it's truth. It's easy because it's true. You know, I'm not just blowing smoke. I really do firmly believe that. And I'm just so thankful for you and for the entire BAI team. I mean, I know it's not just you, but there's a whole team, corporate team behind it that truly is like the lifeblood behind a lot of the brands that I'm able to show, that I can put confidence in these brands and go, hey, this franchise is legitimate. And here's why. And so if you could, Heath, just unpack, introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us a little bit about who you are, your experience with the franchising industry. And with that, of course, a little bit about BAI.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So my official title with BAI is Director of Affiliate Services. So like Jared alluded to, he's one of our brokers. We have a network of brokers. And my main responsibilities always tie back to our brokers, our affiliates. We use affiliate, but you'll hear broker, consultant, those kinds of terms intertwined. But really what I do is support, mentor, and train our network of brokers. So I'll work with Jared and we'll talk through, people he's working with, his clients, questions on brands. We go through his process. So really just here to provide any kind of support and training that our brokers need. And like Jared said, it's not a drop in a bucket. We have a really tight knit network. I know all of our brokers really well. Jared and I have formed an awesome relationship over the last couple of years. And, I've been with BAI over 8 years now. So I've been on the brand side of things, and I take that knowledge of our franchisors and our franchise partners, and then I try to use that to help our network of brokers. And so we wear a lot of different hats as a company, but we pay close attention and are here to support our brokers and franchise partners alike.
Yeah, I get inside this Facebook group. It's of course the greatest Facebook group on the entire metaverse, right? Of course, and so because of that, we actually get there's a handful of franchisors inside this group, maybe even some on the call right now or who are watching this later. And if that's you and you're not a part of BAI or really any like affiliate network, man, I can't encourage you enough to say, hey, if you're serious about development and serious about growing your brand the right way, to partner with an organization like BAI, get inside of our portfolio. If it's true that you have been you're a highly vetted brand franchise and I can trust that, then yeah, I'm gonna fight for you all the way. And so anyway, enough about that, because today we're talking to you, those of you who are curious about franchise ownership and wanting to get into owning your own business via franchising. There is a lot that goes into, like, I'm gonna just say it this way, the sales side of franchising. And a lot of times there is wool that's pulled over a potential buyer's eyes. There's, again, like I said earlier, there's some scamming out there that kind of happens. There's some, hey, look, magic tricks, like, hey, look this way and don't look at this thing. I want your attention over here, because they're trying to, in a way, sell a franchise. And so there's a whole lot in there that's like, for you as a potential buyer, really a potential business owner, there's a lot that you need to know and understand about the entire process, so you are well prepared and can go through the process with confidence and clarity. I wanted to kind of show from a high level view, what we mean by discovery process, what we mean by the pathway to ownership. So this is a very, let me say this, generic outline of what a discovery process to finding the right franchise can look like. Okay, there are several steps in it. Right here, and these, like this kind of triangle here you're seeing, this is my process. This is the FranOps process. This is our direct part of the process with you and identifying the perfect franchise fit for you. Okay, now, and then you'll notice from here on is going to be the general process that any franchisor, any brand is going to walk you through as it relates to seeing if you're a good fit for their franchise and if they're a good franchise fit for you. And so we've talked about this a number of times, and we've looked at this at a couple of different live streams in the past. But here is essentially my process, right? We're going to start with a strategy session call and a qualification assessment. We can unpack those later. It's not what today's call is about. And then after you qualify, I'm going to show you which are the best brands for you. That's where I go to work. That's where I do my magic. Is I'm going to identify the top 3 to 5 brands for you. Of those, when you kind of go, hey, I like this brand or these couple brands, and you say, I want to learn more about those ones and do more research about those, I'm going to then connect you with a high quality referral to the direct person you need to talk to. I'm not going to put you through some like big funnel or pipeline of people. I'm going to put you in direct contact with the person you need to discuss about potential ownership of that brand. And that's where then our process begins. Heath, if you could unpack for us, like, why is understanding the various steps of this process, why is that so important for a potential business owner? For them, before they ever get to the process, before they ever look at a brand, why, or what are what's the benefit of them being on this call right now? What's the benefit of them understanding, at least a general understanding of the overview, the discovery process as a whole?
Yeah, I think it's just transparency is the word I always come back to when it comes to the discovery process. And people like to go into something knowing what's next. You never want to be caught off guard by anything. So I think being able to at least see the outline of what a brand's process, and the one that you mapped out is pretty much the same template most brands follow with a little bit of variation between steps. But going in, knowing what to expect, it helps kind of makes you feel more prepared for what lies ahead. And the steps. And then hey, if this is what I'm trying to learn about a brand, I know that 2 calls from now, that's when we're really going to dive into the FDD, or, I'll get to validate, I'll get to talk to franchisees. And so I think like the value of what Jared, you would bring as a broker is helping to make that process more transparent to begin with. Yeah. And then a lot simpler as you go through the steps, because it can be a lot. It's a lot of information, in just a couple of weeks, typically. Like drinking through a fire hose. So being able to kind of section that out, plan it, and filter that information, I think it provides a lot of value than going in completely blind,
One of the things you said there, I think is super helpful, valuable, is understanding that, and I said too, that that what I had just showed you is a generic process. Every franchise is going to have their own process they're going to walk you through. And none of the steps that I just showed you are, well, I guess one of them is kind of required, but they're not like they have to walk through it in this way, but it is the general process. Like, for example, with every brand being a little different, like I want to show you just a couple of them. This one's a brand called Screen Mobile. We haven't had them on any of the live streams yet, but a great brand to look at. But you can kind of see their process is going to start with a CQ, or that qualification assessment, right? That then it's going to move on to, and you can see the similarities between what I just showed you and theirs. They're going to go do an initial phone call. That's the first step. They're going to do an FDD, a franchise disclosure document review. We'll unpack that in just a second. They're going to go through a review of their entire program. They're going to then hop on validation calls like Keith was just talking about, and we'll share a little bit more too. You're going to then be invited to a discovery day. And then after that, maybe an executive interview. And then from there, you're going to work toward being awarded the right to invest into a Screen Mobile franchise. Or even from there, look at this one is the process of a brand called Teriyaki Madness, one of the best brands out there, especially in the kind of the restaurant or QSR space. But you can kind of see again some of the similarities where they're going to have kind of an introduction call, and then from there right away though you'll notice the difference. They're going to give you the franchise disclosure document and have that conversation ASAP, and then they're going to have a longer conversation with you about your goals and your vision. But eventually you'll get to, again, validation calls. You get to something called discovery day. From there, an executive interview, and then you'll be awarded a franchise. This one, last one I'll show you here, is from another kind of QSR brand called Burrito Bar. And they have a kind of a longer, more, I wouldn't say more developed, but a longer a drawn out process where they kind of do it in 4 phases. Phase 1, you'll see some similarities. You'll do an inquiry, but then you'll do the confidential questionnaire. And from there, you'll do a brand overview call, and then another Zoom build out interview call. And then you'll fill out a personality profile, and then the executive interview. And you'll notice nowhere in here have you hopped on validation calls yet? Have you gone through the FDD or the review yet? Because that all happens in phase 2. That's where you then get the FDD. That's when maybe you'll start doing validation calls. You go through that, and then they'll do phase 3. Well, they will start working toward learning about sites and site approval and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just sharing all that to say the entire process is going to be unique to each individual brand, but I still think there's value in understanding the general steps along the way. So let's just dive into that if we can a little bit, Heath. Like let's talk about the very first one, initial call. Just tell us a little bit about the importance of that initial call. What does a potential buyer, what does a potential business owner need to go into that initial, what's the mindset they need to go into that initial phone call with?
I think it's really just be yourself, because I've always looked at the initial call kind of as a first date. It's really, casual, it's overview. They want you to come in with some questions about the brand ideally, but they really just want to get a feel for, hey, early on, can we tell if this person is a good fit for us or not? And I'm glad you used the approval or the awarded term with franchises, because some people think going in, it's, like, they're going to wine and dine me and they're trying to roll out the red carpet. And then I get to make the final decision. And it's really not like that. It's very much a mutual approval process. And this is that first step where you kind of mutually get to approve of each other. And it's also important to note that it is just an overview call. Some people, it can kind of get cold feet because they feel like this is the point of no return, but it's pure discovery day or pure discovery. And that's really like 80% of this entire process is all due diligence and discovery. And this initial call is just that first step to kind of feel each other out.
Yeah, that's spot on. And I'm going to say something similar too with the let's see, the exploration call, that next step too, just because both of those calls, the initial call, very first time you talk to someone, and potentially a next longer, maybe 45-minute Zoom call or something where they can share their screen and talk about the brand more. Both those calls, like Heath just said, these are not decision time calls. Like sometimes I'll talk to clients and they'll say something like, well, I just want to do some more research before, I talk to them. And it's like, well, you can, but the idea of these calls is to help you do the research. Yes, they are going to like put their brand in the best light possible. But also like all the information you're really looking for is going to come from hopping on a phone call with these people, hopping on these Zoom calls, being in these exploration, so to speak, calls that are really going to unpack the information you're looking for. And so I would not wait to go, hey, yes, I want to go with that brand before the initial phone call. That's one of the biggest mistakes potential buyers I see make all the time is deciding this is the one I want to get to and then have a conversation with them, because the truth is you still have several steps to go and they may not like you. You may not be a good fit for them. If a franchisor, especially in that initial phone call, if they're doing their job correctly, they will turn away a lot of people. They're not going to accept every single person they talk to. They're not going to accept every single person I refer them to necessarily. That's happened before. And so it's a process of mutual exploration as well. But then I do think probably one of the most crucial steps in the process is going to be the FDD and the review that follows. Heath, can you, for someone who is interested in doing this, but they've never heard of those letters before, give us kind of a high level view of what is an FDD?
Yeah. So it can be a little daunting to look at an FDD. They can be, 200-300 page documents. And that's because it is everything about that franchise you would ever need to know, from the ownership, the backgrounds of ownership, everyone tied to ownership of the company. Do they have any past litigation, bankruptcies? It's getting all the skeletons out of the closet, so to speak, in the beginning. And then it dives deep into the financials, the total investment, every single item that is encapsulated within the investment, the fee structure, territories, financials. But it's nice because, yes, it's 200 plus pages, but it's sectioned off into items and you can break it down by item. And there's probably 6 to 8 items in an FDD that are really worth highlighting. And that's kind of what the FDD prep can really help with. Something that I know Jared does with your clients. You just say, hey, these are the key things to be keeping an eye out for, to ask questions about. But it goes back to that word transparency. Like there's not a lot of businesses that roll out every single thing about themselves as you're looking at, exploring ownership. And that's required by the FTC, that every franchisor discloses every single candidate that comes through their doorway on their FDD. They give them a peek behind the curtain, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say it's interesting. Franchising has been around for a few decades now. And but there's still not a ton of government oversight with it, which is good in a lot of ways. But there's also some unfortunate things that happen with that. But the FDD is one of those things where they do have oversight. And so this is actually going to be one of why it's so important for you is because that franchise disclosure document is going to be one of your most beneficial aspects in the whole process as it relates to becoming an owner with them. Because there are things that that a franchisor can and cannot say to you, whether it's based on whether it's in or not in the FDD. Now, There are some, like, whenever I encourage people to look at it, I'll tell them like, hey, I can look at it. I am not going to give you for me personally, I'm not going to give you any kind of business advice based on this FDD. All I can do is ask you questions. Okay. Now, what I can do, what I always encourage all my clients is, however, I can put you into contact with a franchise lawyer who they can legally discuss this with you. They can unpack it with you. They have a much better, more comprehensive understanding of what an FDD is and looks like than I do, than you do. And so they would be the right person to talk to, and they're not connected to that franchisor at all either. And so we can do some of these, very important steps along the way to make sure that you're getting all your questions answered, all your I's dotted, T's crossed, and make sure it's the right thing. Because I'll tell you to look at some. Heath, what would you say are some of the more important? They're all important. I get that, but if someone has never looked at an FDD, and you were to say, hey, you really should look at least right away these items within the FDD. Yep. What would that be? What would you suggest?
Yeah, well, the first three are important. 1, 2, and 3 are important because it's kind of the background on the company. And that's where you're getting into, okay, who are all the characters, who are all the players behind the ownership? And it goes deep. It'll be board members to CEOs, and you can see all their backgrounds.
Right. And that's such a great tool too, because that allows you to then go to Google.
Yeah.
Make Google your friend, Google the names, you should learn about them.
Yep. And then there's litigation, which is important. You can see,
3,
but litigation, it's important to have context too. And I'm glad Jared brought up a franchise attorney, and franchise is the key word there. You do not want to use your personal attorney to review an FDD. It's good to have someone with knowledge of the franchise industry to look at that. But in litigation, you want to keep an eye out for, okay, how long ago was this? Was it franchisees coming after the franchisor? Was it the franchisor, going after some bad apple franchisees? That's really important context to have around it. And then you can look at bankruptcies, the financial health of the company and the people behind the decision-making for that company and their financial past. So that's 1, 2, 3. And then I think 5 is really important. That's where it breaks down the franchise fees. And if you're a veteran, it'll talk about the discounts. So you can get some really good pieces of information.
What's it cost?
Item
5.
Yeah, based on territories, all that good stuff. Item 7 is, like I said, where it goes line by line and tells you exactly what that investment range encapsulates. And in that is working capital too. So a good franchise will have good numbers on, once you've paid for the franchise, here's what you have left over to really make it go. That's something to keep an eye out for in the item 7. And then I think 12 is important. Get an idea of how they map out their territories. Is it population based? Is it, a radius of distance around the store? What does that look like? Yeah. And then I think 19
are those territories exclusive?
Yeah. All the rules around territories. And
or
then
could they put, the same kind of franchise right on the other side of the parking lot as you,
Yeah. So. Yeah. The non-competes, that's encapsulated in there. And then 19 is the one you'll hear referenced the most because that talks about earnings. And I will say not every item 19 is as good as another. There are some brands that lay it out very transparently. They'll show you every franchisee, what their revenue was. There's other franchises that get a little more creative with how they structure it. They'll say, oh, these are our average earnings. And then you see the fine print at the bottom and it's top 10%. So you want to really understand what that item 19 is showing you.
And that's so good because like I said about the government, they actually don't have to disclose information in the item 19. They could put nothing in there if they wanted to, and so, or they can disclose the information how they want to disclose it. So it's important to really look at the fine print, especially in that item 19 to see what, and it's going to the good ones are going to be honest and break it down into, not just quartiles, but they're going to break it down into 10% ranges too, all the way down to their very bottom performers, all the way to their top. You're going to get the average, you're going to get the median, you're going to get all those numbers in there to kind of get a gauge. And the thing is, every franchise that's worth their salt, they're going to have not such great things to put into an FDD at times. Like, for example, you mentioned the item 3 with litigation. Any franchise that's been around a while, they're probably going to have some kind of a court case or, lawsuit or litigation issue in their item 3. That doesn't mean that it's a bad brand. That means, hey, ask questions about that.
Yeah.
Don't just because it's got something in there, they've been sued or they have sued a franchisee.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they're just ask about it. What was the situation there?
Yep.
Who were the owners at that time? What was happening?
Yep.
Same thing with item 19. Ask questions. Why are your bottom 25% doing so poor? What is that about? What's that about?
Yeah.
And so ask those kinds of questions. That's really what it's about. Is setting you up. Anything else you would say on the FDD?
Yeah, I would say it's important too. Not every brand even has an item 19. There's a lot of newer brands will wait because they want more of a sample size to pull from to really show like palpable data. So don't take a no item 19 as a knock against the franchise. Like Jared said, it's just probably a good question to ask if it's not a brand that's in their first couple of years. And then the last item is item 20. And this can tell the story of a franchise because it shows you the growth, the if the number of franchisees has gone down, if there was a big mass exodus of franchisees.
Right.
Again, good questions to ask. What happened here?
Why
it doesn't. It grabs your attention. It doesn't necessarily always mean it's a red flag though. But it'll tell you last year, this is how many we brought on. This is how many we lost. These were the reasons behind the ones we lost. Again, it's that transparency. It's really helpful. And then the last thing, if you're a numbers nerd, usually if you scroll down to the bottom of FDDs, you can see their balance sheet of the entire company. You can really analyze the overall financial health. Are they operating at a profit, a loss? Where's their money coming from? Where's their expenses going? It's again, full transparency on the balance sheet of that franchise. So I think those are the main things to look out for. But like you said, when there's something that grabs your attention, don't jump to any conclusions.
Right.
Just ask that franchisor about it. They should have a good explanation for anything in their FDD.
Yep. That's why we call it due diligence. And in fact, actually, Heath, I'm going to correct you. That item 20 is not the technical last item. There is an item 21.
Yeah.
But it's just a all item 20. The last item is just something you sign. It's just the receipt,
like a disclosure.
saying you have received the FDD. Now, and that's important because sometimes I'll work with a client that gets that and they're like, hey, they want me to sign this. What am I doing? It's not in any way. Again, it's not a decision-making point. It's just legally they have to, in order for you to receive it, you have to sign it saying I've received it.
Yeah.
Okay? That's really all it is. And so it's not, you're not agreeing to becoming anything as a part of this brand in any way. It's just saying you have received it. That's all it is. But just so you know, that's the other thing that you'll end up signing at some point in order to get the FDD. Now, with the FDD, what's important to know about it too is once they give it to you, this is another kind of government oversight thing, which is helpful. It's to your advantage. You cannot sign a franchise agreement within 14 days of receiving that FDD. So there is actually a intentional period of 2 weeks in there that you have been given and are allowed to review, to spend time reading it, because it's going to take some time. And I encourage you, this is a big, potentially lifelong investment for you. Spend your time reading it. Ask for some help. Let's connect with a franchise lawyer who can spend some time going over that with you. But you have 14 days to do that very thing. And so that's kind of the benefit there of that. Now, from that though, once we have it, and maybe it's not even after 14 days, this might be in the wrong spot here. But this could maybe go even 14 days minimum to view. Okay. Another key step, and what many of the clients I've worked with have found to be actually potentially the most helpful step is what we call validation calls. Now, Heath, talk to us about validation calls. Why are those? What are they? And why are they so beneficial to a potential franchisee?
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention about the FDD, something that's in there that's not an item, is a list of every single franchisee that brand has in their system. It shows you where they are. It has their contact information. And then when you get to this point validation, this is what really, like Jared referenced, I think this is the turning point in the discovery process. This is where most people decide yes or no, I'm going with this franchise or not. And it's where you get all the franchisees. They might, you might have some suggestions on like, hey, if you want to be semi-absentee, here's some franchisees that started semi-absentee. So start with them, ask them the questions. But this is really where you get to ask any question you want to a current owner. You can ask them how much money they made last month, bottom line, and they can tell you. So any of those roadblocks or I'd say like restrictions and legal restrictions, like talking about earnings, any of those things that Jared or the franchisor has really had to avoid talking to you about or tiptoe around, this is where you get, full transparency from the owners. So you really get to ask them, hey, are you happy with the decision you made? Would you do it again? This is, you'll hear honest answers from franchisees. They will not sugarcoat anything. So this is really where I think you get a true idea of a day in the life, how much money you can make, those types of burning questions that are obviously some of the main motivation why you're looking at a business in the first place. Validation is a pivotal part of this process. And one thing I would really keep an eye out for too is if a brand is enthusiastic about validating, they're excited for you to talk to franchisees, that's a very good sign. And then if it's reverse, if they're kind of nervous about you talking to franchisees, then there should be some cause for concern. But
a little yellow flag there.
But one thing we look for from BAI's perspective, the brands we want to work with, how do you validate? That's one of the first questions we ask. If we got on the phone with 10 franchisees, what would we hear? And that's what we look for in the brands we bring on board. So that we want that process to be pleasant for franchisees. And we want you to go back to Jared and say, man, great conversations. I love what I heard. But like you said too, Jared, having some preparation going into it, having a few good questions to ask franchisees, having that guidance, that's really valuable too.
And that's where I'm going to come in helpful for you as well. So I'm going to provide some resources to you so you can know, oh, I didn't even think about this question. That's a good one to ask, or, to make sense, how to process what you're hearing from them as well, And I'm going to encourage you too, like in that FDD, there will hopefully be past owners on there too, that you can call and say, hey, why are you no longer an owner? What's going on here? Did you retire? Did something go wrong? What happened? Talk to, if a franchisor is encouraging you, hey, only call these 3 or 5. Okay, call them for sure, but don't only call them. Call other owners. And there's going to be some, if they've been around for any length of time, there's probably going to be some disgruntled past franchisees. It's okay to talk to them. In fact, there's probably a lot to learn from there. That doesn't mean don't go with that brand. It just means ask questions, figure out the why behind what happened before you draw any conclusions about it. But validation calls are going to be one of the most crucial steps in the entire process for sure.
And one thing I'll add too, Jared, is, from a potential franchisee's point of view, you're really going to get out of validation what you put into it. So don't be afraid to really take your time and call as many franchisees as you like. I think it's good to get those different perspectives. And then if you hear something negative, you can talk to Jared, and Jared can talk to the franchise developer and say, hey, what's up with, my candidate hearing this on a call? And they hopefully they come back with a legitimate explanation for why that franchisee soured. But again, it's that transparency.
Yeah, and that's so good, because that's the beauty of having someone like me in your corner is I can be that guy to go to the franchisor for you. You don't feel comfortable going to them. You feel a little uneasy about it. I can go to them and ask them the tough questions. I'm okay being the bad guy. And I've done that for clients too. Even for clients that go, hey, I don't want to talk to them anymore. They're not the right brand for me. I can be that bad guy for you. I can go to them and say, hey, this isn't the right fit. We're going to try to find another franchise. I've done that multiple times. I can do it for you too. That's, again, the benefit of having a consultant like me in your corner. But after validation calls, after the FDD review, usually you're going to come out to or be invited to something called the discovery day. Now, again, every franchisor kind of does it differently. I'm working with a client from inside this group actually right now that is working with a brand called Schooley Mitchell, and they do it differently. Their discovery day is not late in the process. It's actually far earlier in the process. And every franchise does it a little differently. Some do it in person. And I would venture to say pre-2020 that most of them, a lot of them did it all in person. You actually came out to headquarters. Now, a large number of franchisors do it just completely virtually. or online different ways. Sometimes these discovery days are 2 days long. Sometimes they are just a 4-hour afternoon call, and somewhere in between. They're all going to look a little different. But Heath, if you could tell us a little bit about Discovery Day, and I'm going to say / Confirmation Day.
Yeah.
I know. I'm working with a different client from inside this group who's working with a company called Live Hydration, and they don't do Discovery Day; they do Confirmation Day. So unpack for us, what is Discovery / Confirmation Day, and why is that so important for a potential buyer?
Yeah, Discovery Day is really, it should be an exciting time. It's kind of where you're getting all your last questions answered. And this is also where the franchisor is really putting you in the shoes of an owner. They're giving you the feel of what it's going to be like to be a franchisee with that brand. They'll probably have franchisees there kind of telling their story and there to answer questions. But the goal of a Discovery Day is to make sure there's no questions, there's no concerns left, because if it's a confirmation day, that's how it's listed. That's kind of like where you're signing at the end of that. Typically, Discovery Day is more, okay, let's get your questions answered. Let's really take a deep dive into, a day in the life, what your financials could look like. It's really meant to kind of paint that picture and build that excitement, and obviously meet the team, because one of the most important things about fitting into a franchise is matching that culture. And this is that final step where you get to figure out and decide, is this the culture? Is this the brand I want to be a part of? The brand is also at the same time saying, okay, are these the owners? Is this the owner we want to bring on? Are they a good fit for our culture? And it is an exciting time, but it's kind of that last step before decision time. So if you're going into it with some questions still, or something you're hoping to find out, this is the time that you'll get those questions answered and really get the full look into, what being a franchisee will entail.
Yeah, and I always encourage my clients to make sure you're putting your best foot forward. If this is one that you are interested in and you really do potentially see yourself becoming a franchisee with this brand, put your best foot forward here. Be on time, dress appropriately, come with questions, be, of course, cordial, but just put your best foot forward to present yourself in the best light to this franchise. Because after all the work you've done so far in the process with the FDD and the validation calls, all the work that I've done and talking to them and referring you and building you up, like, to them, we want to make sure you are VIP. You are the next MVP of this franchise. So continue to do that in that Discovery Day. Some franchises will make it Confirmation Day, where you're actually coming out to sign. You'll do the franchise agreement there. You'll sign, you'll write a check, and then you are in. You are the next franchise. Most of them don't do that. I would say most do not do that. They do it as a Discovery Day. You come out to meet the team, but you're not going to sign a franchise agreement there and then on the spot necessarily. Okay.
Yeah.
But then after that, after you have done everything, you've gone through the FDD, you've gone through the initial phone calls, you've sat on the Zoom calls and done the brand overviews, you've done the validation calls, you've done it all, you've done Discovery Day. Then usually there's some kind of final executive team interview. Okay. Talk to us a little bit about what might that be? What might that look like, Heath?
Yeah, and this is probably the step I see the most variation around. It's either after Discovery Day or it's way earlier in the process. Like you might have your overview call with the developer, and then you jump on a call with the founder. Yeah. And it's really just to give you that access.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Like for a brand like a McDonald's or a Papa John's, you're not gonna hop on a call with the founder.
I would assume not. He's a busy guy. Yeah. No, these are the brands we're dealing with, those middle of the pack. But we do have, franchises have 2,500 franchisees, and there is a call with the founder every time. So sometimes there is that access, but it really is just that final decision, because it does. The franchisor, the team you've been working with, they want to make sure that, hey, the head honcho, the founder of our company, the face of our company, they want you to be a member of the team as well. And then it's also a time to ask some last minute questions. But it goes back to what you said, Jared, just really being on your A game for Discovery Day and founder calls. Super important to be engaged, really putting your best foot forward. Because I have seen brokers have candidates turned away at discovery day and turned away after founder calls. So it's really those last two times where it's that mutual approval process.
Can make or break it for sure.
100%. Yep.
Yeah, that's so good. My goodness. And after all that work too. So yeah, you're going to have some kind of board interview, executive team interview. And after it's all said and done, then and only then will there be a franchise agreement given to you. And that is when it's make or break it time. That's when it's decision time. That's where you have to decide, am I in on this brand or am I not? By this point, you'll probably have already decided that you're in if you've made it this far. But the point is, you don't have to make that decision way back at the beginning, way back here at the initial call, at the exploration call. You're not making that decision there. If there is, even after our initial franchise opportunity showcase call where we've looked at a couple of brands together, even after that, and if you're going, I like these couple of brands, but I'm not sure about them, that's where you're supposed to be at that point. My goal is not to convince you that the brands I'm showing you, you have to go with them. These are the right ones for your future. This is it. No, it's going, I believe from my perspective, from my network, from my experience, from my education, that these are going to be some of the best fits for you. Let's talk about them from a high level perspective. Yeah. And the ones you are most interested in, let's continue with further research by getting connected to the franchise, because that's where you're going to get your hands on the FDD. That's where you're going to get a list of people to call, current business owners, past business owners to call. That's where you're really going to discover a whole lot more about the franchise, really get all your questions answered, and decide at each point in the process, do I want to keep moving forward in this process? And that's what I always encourage people is don't ever just write off a brand if there's still potential. If there's potential in there and you like it, keep going with it until you kind of go, oh, I don't like that. I don't like the way this brand is, this whatever it might be, this model is laid out. I don't like the royalties. I don't like what these franchisees are telling me. I don't like the team. I haven't connected. I was working with a client earlier this year and liked the business model, liked the people I talked to on the phone, ultimately didn't like the support team over at headquarters. And so we have pivoted and we went with a different brand. And so there's a number of different reasons why you might sign off, but those are kind of things you're not going to learn by just Googling about brands. Exactly. So this is why it's such the whole process is so critical to just go in with curiosity, with an open mind and potential that this could be your next franchise. So Heath, even after, let's say a franchise is awarded, let's say they get the agreement, they are awarded the opportunity to invest into a franchise and they sign, what might give me just 30-second or 2-minute overview of what might they be able to expect next?
Yeah, well, hopefully it's a blueprint to follow. And, the discovery process was a lot of information, but this is really where the work begins. This is where, you're getting your territory mapped out. You're coming up with and this totally varies by business model. Obviously brick and mortar, you're looking at 6 to 8 month, finding a location, negotiating the lease, all that. But some of the more home-based and mobile brands, it could be 3 weeks from signing to you're actually open and, bringing in customers. So it's really just where all that support that you're paying a franchise fee for, that's where you're seeing what you're getting for that. That's where all the pre-opening training and setup and all those resources come into play. So, and that's also, an important question to ask. Hey, I signed the agreement. I pay a $50,000 franchise fee. What am I getting for that? And it's pre-opening this, they should be able to list out those resources that are all dedicated to helping you get open and having your franchise up and running. And one thing I'll say too, just about the whole process, it might seem that there might be some unnecessary steps in there, or it's kind of a daunting thing to take on, but it's all designed around protecting you as the franchise buyer. It's giving you that transparency so that by, step 8, when you're making your decision, you can be really confident in that decision because you've done your due diligence, you've had your questions answered, and you feel good about signing on that dotted line. That's what this whole process is for. It's to protect the buyer more than
100%. And if you at any point in the process feel like you're being pressured into that brand or that decision, or you feel for any reason something's gone wrong, or that could be a red flag, you know, something
100%.
to dig into a little bit, and or maybe to walk away from that brand because of that. It's designed to protect you, but it's also it is designed to protect. I remember we had Justin on from Ziggy's, and they view it very much as a way to protect their brand, because they don't want to just sell franchise licenses and that's it. You know, they want to develop a high quality brand, one that's going to be lasting forever, you know? And so he doesn't even call their reps, their franchise developers. They don't call them salespeople. They call them brand protectors. And I love that, because the best brands to get invested with, that's the kind of mindset you want to see, is those 100%. That care deeply about the brand, but care more deeply about people. And if they don't believe you're a good fit for them, they will tell you that. They'll let you know. And,
well, like you said in the beginning, Jared, really important to note, it's good if you see a brand that turns people away at Discovery Day. You don't want someone who's letting everybody in. The difference between a good franchise and a bad franchise is a good franchise is selective about that, because they know they succeed more as a company when they bring on good owners, because royalties are recurring revenue, and that's really how they build a significant business. If a brand's just trying to bring in as many people as they can to get those franchise fee checks, that's the sign. That's a red flag. That's the sign of a bad brand that's not focused on long-term success. So,
that's so good, guys. And if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I love what I'm hearing. I want to dive into that process because I think I can handle it with confidence and clarity. And, or maybe you're still like, I don't know yet, but I really could use the value of working with someone like FranOps and like, hey, let's find the right brand and then help me do the research and do the discovery process. If that's you right now in the chat, type 2024. I'll send you a message. We'll get started today. But Heath, seriously, thank you so much, brother, for your time, your investment into this audience of elite entrepreneurs and empire builders. Your expertise, your wisdom is next level. I'm so proud to be part of the BAI family and team and network. And so genuinely appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, we're proud to have you and appreciate what you're doing with this community. It's amazing. So thanks so much for having me on today.
All right. Appreciate you, brother. We'll talk to you later. All right. Guys, next week, bringing you a franchisee. Bringing you a franchisee with another brand called Mr. Electric. His story, it is going to blow your mind. It really will. And so you need to be here next Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. It's unlike any story I've ever heard in my life. And it gets me pumped up. And so I want to share some right now just to give you a taste, but I'm going to save it because you're going to be like, holy smokes, this guy went through what? This guy lost what? This guy experienced what? And he's still one of the most successful businessmen I've ever talked to. And so I'm excited to talk about him and Mr. Electric a little bit more, but that's all next week. For now, again, I see some of you brand protectors love it. Absolutely. Justin, nice job, bro. Love it. Thanks for hopping on the call, guys. We'll see you all next week. Until then, this has been Jared with FranOps Live. Appreciate you all. We'll see you later. Have a good